This Scorpio new moon in the place of darkness is the electric alchemy we need. Amid a Mercury Cazimi, a Grand Water Trine, and a Uranus opposition, it's awakening deep power within. I'm Whitney Kranz, if you don't know me. I'm your mystic sis, your astro BFF, and it's my God's given duty to translate the otherworldly wisdom of the cosmos into down-to-earth insights. This place, the House of Good Spirit, is the place where we connect with each lunation and our own hopes, dreams, and wishes for the future. By examining the new moons and the full moons, we get to grow in the direction of our dreams. If that sounds like your thing, go ahead, like and subscribe. And if you need an astro bestie, that's me. You can go ahead and book a reading at the link in the description, and we can cover exactly what this new moon in Scorpio means for you and your personal transformation. So let's overview this new moon in Scorpio, shall we? The waters are alive, they're charged, they're ready to reveal something powerful. The new moon occurs on November 20th at 28 degrees Scorpio. Now here, Central Time in the USA, this moon occurs at 12:47 a.m. So depending on where you live, this new moon may actually take place on November 19th. Anyway, that overnight period of November 19th, super powerful. Now, I mentioned at the top of the show, this is big. This new moon is happening exactly conjunct Mercury, which means that not only is the moon at the heart of the sun here, but Mercury is also at the heart of the sun, or in other words, we say Cazimi. Now, Mercury is actually on its retrograde journey, which started in Sagittarius and has worked its way all the way back to this point, 28 degrees of Scorpio. This is a symbol that this particular lunation is delivering a ton of insight, possibly rewriting whatever it is we're working on, whatever it is we are creating at this time. Now, that's not all, because this lunation, those three planets, the sun, the moon, and Mercury, are all exactly trine to Jupiter in Cancer and Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. And that entire combination is structuring what we call a Grand Water Trine. And we know the trine to be the nature of Jupiter itself. In this way, a trine is incredibly supporting. But I'm going to say it again, because that's not all, right? I sound like one of those phony infomercials, but it's not. This new moon is also happening opposite Uranus in Taurus. That is providing a ton of electrical power. And what that means when we put an opposition on top of this Grand Water Trine, we've got a Grand Water Kite. And you may remember that earlier this fall, starting in mid-August or so, we've had these trines and kite formations occurring, but rooted in air signs. So we've seen now this shift from heady intellect into a deeply creative, intuitive, emotional, and interior space. And so we also have to know that this lunation is happening in Scorpio. Scorpio is the feminine rulership of Mars. Mars, the ruler of this moon, is in Sagittarius right now. And where Mars is positioned in Sagittarius is actually exactly square the nodes. That's something we'll talk about when we dive into our themes, but it's worth noting here at the top that the ruler of this lunation, for one, is averse. It can't see this new moon, but it is also in this incredibly destiny-focused, transitional space. So in just a few words, this lunation is about trusting deep instinct, about navigating uncertainty, and really about awakening this electric creative courage within. Now, I'm trying something a little bit different with this show, and so we're going to jump right into the themes with the hopes that we tease out both the scorpionic depth and the astrological context simultaneously. Now, I don't do this show for me, I do it for you. So if you miss the deep dive on those portions, please let me know in the comments. But I wouldn't just leave you hanging without a resource. For the full treatment on Scorpio, that 411, you should head over to the Nightlight Astrology channel. An episode aired on October 25th where my incredible co-hosts Alexandra Blair and Alex Amorosi and I talked all about the archetypal meaning of Scorpio, the various rulerships, detriments, etc. So you can head over there and check in every weekend on Nightlight Astrology, where you can find me co-hosting Weekend Wisdom. So let's hop into the themes this new moon is dredging up. And later, as usual, we will talk about reflection and integration, right? The journal prompts and the actions we can take to fully integrate this powerful moment. And, we'll cover Astro Style as well. So where does Scorpio fall for you? Let me know in the comments. And if you don't know, drop your rising sign. I will let you know what house this moon is activating. So that brings me to the first theme of this new moon, what it all means. I am talking about the electric cauldron, the stirring of the pot, the kitchen witchery that creates transformation. This is all about the Grand Water Trine, folks. It's a current of wisdom and intuition that is flowing at this time. There is a sense of electricity here that the cauldron is brewing pure power. And really, it's opening these emotional and intuitive channels. It's even a psychic current. And what we have to know about this is that electricity is rooted actually doubly in the symbolism of Mercury being conjoined this new moon and all of that opposing Uranus and Uranus's electric unpredictability. And so I get the image here that something submerged is surfacing within us, maybe in a shock of clarity. And isn't that the power of transmutation itself? I would absolutely imagine that here during this time, we are experiencing some incredibly intense emotions. And my reassurance to you is yeah, it's working. If you're experiencing those intense emotions, the astrology is working. So now we mentioned it, but right in the heart of that cauldron, of the deep scorpionic depths of power and intuition, there sits Mercury. Mercury is at the heart of the sun and burning away this illusion, which brings me to the next theme of what this all means. It's a revelation in the depths. And with this being all Mercury Cazimi centric, this is actually what we call an inferior Mercury Cazimi. That's because Mercury is retrograde right now. And so there's a way that what's happening here, the insight that's coming through, the revelation in the depths, it's something that we came back here specifically to discover. It's a message that cuts through the noise. And in Scorpio, this is a truth test. Scorpio is not surface level. With Mars as the ruler of Scorpio, Scorpio is an incredibly penetrating sign. And so we're accessing a truth that's deep within. But there's something about this, the image I get at this new moon of a slippery eel, right? A slippery electric eel with Mercury involved, with Uranus involved. There's some serious trickster energy here. With the truths that are revealing themselves right now, it's a moment to, of course, trust our intuition, but also check our work, check our math, right? As shocking realizations may come into play over this time, there is a way that we are reclaiming our inner truth, but like that slippery electric eel, we're asked to navigate on instinct, trust our instinct, right? Sometimes instinct supersedes rationalization. In this way, if we're talking about the symbolism of this electric eel, an electric eel doesn't create a shock to light the way. This electric shock isn't necessarily for clarity, but very much in line with the Scorpio archetype. The electric eel stuns its prey with this shock for self-preservation so they can eat. When things get slippery, we need to navigate on truth, navigate on instinct in both the means to preserve our own and protect our own integrity and to act with it outwardly to others. That brings me to my third theme of what this all means. We are navigating on instinct here. The seas are churning. This image of this grand water kite invites change, and change isn't easy. There's a tension involved here. That's that center of the kite holding the tension. But we know with this Grand Water Trine that this is supportive work. It's supporting our future. How do we see our own visions through in the midst of what could very well feel like this electric chaos? Well, I'm thinking of this image that came to me when looking at this chart, and it goes back to this ancient Greek myth mentioned by Homer, Ovid, and others. But this is of the sea monster Scylla and the sea-swallowing monster, Charybdis. And so the story goes like this. There is a narrow strait somewhere in the Mediterranean, in the Aegean Sea, and this strait is so narrow and so tough for sailors to navigate. The reason why is because on one side of the strait is the sea-swallowing monster, Charybdis. It's not a monster at all. In fact, it is simply a churning whirlpool that sucks sailors into their depth. And on the other side is the sea monster Scylla. Scylla is a giant monster with heads of dogs protruding from her hips. And what happens is if the sailors get too close to Charybdis, they will fall into the murky depths, never to be seen again. But if they play it too safe, they play it too close to the shoreline where Scylla lies, these hungry heads of dogs will devour them whole. And so when we are presented with this vision we have that we need to carry through the chaos, it takes cunning and strength. Actually, it takes often brains over brawn in order to navigate a situation like that, right? You need cunning. You need MacGyver type skills. And so this new moon is asking us to use our cunning, use our wits, and use what we have deep inside, our own instinct, to get us through the seeding point to the blossoming of this future vision we hold. Now, desire plays a part in all of this, doesn't it? I'm bringing desire because we have not yet mentioned Venus, but Venus plays a role here because Venus is co-present this new moon in Scorpio. Now, Venus is in detriment here, and there is a way in which when we talk about desire, when we desire something, we can clutch something so hard it breaks. And that is where Venus's detriment comes to play here. Venus in Scorpio can be longing. Venus in Scorpio can deal with obsession. Venus in Scorpio can sometimes act with fear of loss. So if we talk about the story of the sea monsters Scylla and Charybdis, well, get this. Scylla was created by the mythic witch Circe. And we see this dynamic of desire play out in Circe's story with Scylla, because Circe's jealousy of the naiad Scylla's beauty led her to poison her and turned her into this monster who threatened the ancient sailors. And so what we need instead of using desire as a root of obsession is to use desire as a catalyst. Let this desire we hold, this deep desire we hold at this time, become the initiatory fire of purification and devotion rather than the fire of fear. And listen, when we honor what we want without grasping, it becomes devotion, not poison. And Mars does know a little something about desire, doesn't he? Mars, as we mentioned, as the ruler of this lunation here at the North Bending, is asking us to take the plunge. And that's the last theme I have for the meaning of this new moon in our lives, in the darkest part of our charts. Mars in Sagittarius is at the North Bending. You can see that Mars is directly square the nodes. That's what we call the bending of the nodes. And the bending of the nodes is a karmic point of development and also manifestation. It sounds a little bit like a new moon does anyway, doesn't it? And when we put Mars here at the North Bending, we talk about themes of hunger, of drive, of destiny. And I can't help but think that as Mars here is activating the nodal axis, we may want to think back to eclipse season. Anything at the bending of the nodes can be a callback to the experiences of the eclipses, simply because the nodes are what create eclipses. So you can think of that in terms of tracking what's happening in your life, what deep desires you're discovering, what deep intuitions you're knowing, what deep power you're cultivating. How is that related to the experiences you've gone through during recent eclipses? But really, with Mars here at the bending of the nodes, it is helping to turn this kite into forward motion, right? With Mars archetypes, it's action, it's ignition, it's saying, ready or not, here you come. What we're discovering, the deep, personal, intuitive insights, we must harness them with vigor under this new moon. And if you do, you may find that when you take the plunge, you float, right? It's water. We as humans are mostly made up of water. We're meant to float. And that is doubled down by the fact that Mars here in this chart is in Jupiter's bound. Jupiter is the planet of belief. Mars is telling us, just believe, the net will open. So now that we know the incredible depth of transformation and new beginning occurring in this full moon, how do we integrate all of this electric water energy without short-circuiting, without getting zapped? And for me, it's all about integration. So as usual, I have several journal prompts for you. So I want you to ask this time, in line with all of these themes we've discussed, what truth or realization is surfacing right now that feels too powerful to ignore? What old story or fear are you ready to transmute into your own strength? Where do you need to trust your instincts, and where do you need to verify your assumptions before acting? What desire or obsessions even might actually point you toward deeper transformation? And where are you being called to make a bold move, even if you don't feel quite ready yet? And finally, if your emotions were electric currents, what are they trying to illuminate right now? Now, with journaling being your first method of integration here, we know we can take concrete actions as well. And what I love under this Grand Water Kite energy, go take a spa day to really relax and deepen into your own mind, the own truths that are flowing through you. This could look like a bathhouse. This could be a quick hop in the hot tub if you're lucky enough to have one of those. In fact, I have scheduled ahead. I have prepared over this particular weekend. I have scheduled a little bathhouse visit for my hubby and I to enjoy, to sort of deepen into the silence, the feeling, the inner truths. I think also another way to really integrate the depth of this astrology is a little something called a float tank. I've only done it once many years ago, probably a decade ago, but it came to me that this would be a really good exercise at this time. These float tanks are basically sensory deprivation tanks. You float in this pod in a small amount of water so you feel weightless, and it's completely dark, it's completely soundproof. And what kind of creativity, what kind of voices speak when you are in the dark like that? Another way to integrate this And my dear friend Sarah Posh over at Growing Deep Astrology, she suggested this, and I'm just obsessed. The idea is to whisper to your water. Water holds intentions, and there are scientific studies that water, when spoken to with positive energy, creates these beautiful crystals, and conversely will start to decay when we speak negatively to it. And you know what? We are mostly made of water. So when we whisper positive intentions into our water and we drink that water, it becomes a part of us. It's like we whispered to ourselves. I think another way to work with this, because there is that heat of the Uranian fire, go to hot yoga. Sweat it out while you center yourself. That would be another great way. You could also simply set a Kazimi intention, right? The power of the Mercury conjunction at this new moon is great. So set your intention, read it aloud. It should go a little something like, I now see clearly that. Finish it. So as you are visiting the spa, whispering to your water, what are you wearing? Well, you know, it's that time for Astro Style. And we're talking about Scorpio. Scorpio, the sign of Mars, the darkest point in our solar year. And so, you know what you're going to wear? Just black. Black, 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 and more black. Black mesh. Ooh, black lace. Remember, Venus is here. Make it sexy. Pull out your goth queen, goth babe vibes. Throw in a little extra eyeliner for some mystery. There's something about the electric current of this lunation that's telling me, like, wear your headphones as an accessory. Throw in your hoodies. Remember, Scorpio is a protective sign in itself. Scorpio represented by the stinging scorpion, right? And so protect yourself with layers. Hoodies, of course, make it comfy. I have probably my most scorpionic piece of clothing is this amazing sweatshirt I have that was designed by a dear friend who's an artist. Her name is Renee Boynton, and it has her artwork on the front. It's this gorgeous skull with this beautiful lily blooming out of the eye socket. And so I will be wearing that hoodie all Scorpio season. You can also layer up in cozy dark sweaters. I'm thinking oversized cardigans. I also love a little badass leather jacket at this point, right? We need our armor on. And in the vein of protection, what about sharp or, hey, coffin-shaped nails? I'm talking blood red, people. In fact, my husband would always ask me when I was regularly doing my nails, why do you like your nails so long? Why do you like your nails so sharp? I said, well, honey, we live in the city. That shit's self-defense, right? So file those nails to points, paint them deep, dark blood red, and you'll be ready for Scorpio season. With that, my friends, I wish you the best new beginnings that this electric alchemy is creating in our lives. That deep power within is churning. It's already there. And this new moon is uncovering it for us to use and actualize our future. So with that, my friends, have a wonderful, electrically charged new moon. And if you need to know exactly how this lunation, the power of the scorpionic depths of this new moon, Mercury Cazimi Grand Water Trine Kite is affecting you personally, book a reading, come see me. We will talk about it in detail in relation to your own chart, your own astrology, and how you specifically can integrate this. With that, my friends, I'll see you next time.